All right. So we're live. Um, we're live. I say we're live. We're on air. We're not live. You won't watch this or listen to this live. But here we are nonetheless. Um, if you're watching, you know that we are out of the studio right now. We're not in our normal recording place. It's kind of tough to get access to right now. It's a different story for a different time. But I'm here with you tonight, and I say I. It's just me. There's no Tango, no anybody else. It's just you and me in this empty space. Um, but there's a lot going on in the empty space tonight, right? If you're not living under a rock, you know that Charlie Kirk has been killed. He was shot at a rally today at a college in Utah. Um, just insanity, just crazy, crazy stuff. Just a insane and evil world that we live in. So we'll back up just a little bit. If you don't know who Charlie Kirk is, Charlie was a 31-year-old husband and father of two. He's got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and that makes it hard enough to think about, right? Somebody having to, right now we're a couple of hours, maybe not even a couple hours removed from Charlie's death, and that means that people are sitting with his wife and his kids right now, and their emotions are absolutely raw. And who knows what's going through their minds right now, because Charlie, well, he's a political commentator to us, but he was dad and he was husband to them. These kids are not going to understand at that age why daddy's not coming home. Um, they're both young enough. Maybe the 3-year-old, the 1-year-old, definitely not old enough that they're not going to remember their dad in any meaningful way. And as sad as that is, it also means they won't remember the pain of this day. The just unimaginable pain that these kids are going through. Um, but again, Charlie is he was a husband, he was a father, he was the founder of Turning Point USA, which was a conservative nonprofit group, and it was founded by, like I said, by Charlie and by one of his friends, Bill Montgomery. When Charlie was 18 years old, they founded it in 2012. So, doing the math, going backwards on that, Charlie was a kid when he founded this, still a very young man on the day of his death. Um, but he would hold these open air events. And for those of you that are familiar with him, bear with me, and I want to catch up anybody that's not familiar. But he would hold these open air events at these colleges and universities. He was, I believe, at Utah Valley University today, and he would sit in front of a microscope under a tent or whatever, out in open air, and his thing was prove me wrong. And he would propose an idea, maybe give a little bit of a speech, and then he would open up the microphone for questions. He would prioritize people who disagree with him first. You get to come up and ask your question first. And Charlie, man, they spit on Charlie. They cussed Charlie. They said terrible things about him, about his family. And he was professional throughout. He would keep his cool when not a lot of people would be able to do that. But it wasn't about winning debates. Charlie was about changing hearts and minds. And maybe that sounds cheesy, but he had a passion for these young adults, and he started this organization when he himself was a young adult. But he wanted to be able to go onto these college campuses and discuss ideas and talk about things with people. And he was able to change minds and give people a new point of view, a new perspective on things, because we know in academia these days it's so overwhelmed with Marxist ideology and things like that that it's just being shoveled down these college students' throats. He wanted them to hear the other side. That was his whole thing, to hear the other side of things and have these open debates and these discussions. Charlie didn't run from questions. He didn't. He wasn't afraid of what somebody might ask. He would encourage any and everything from the other side on the microphone. But that's what he would do. And he was the king of these things. He was absolutely undefeated. And a lot of folks are going to say, well, he was always debating these college kids, right? But that was the idea. It didn't do him any good to debate his professors. The professors got to stand in front of these kids. The teacher, the faculties got to stand in front of these kids all day, every day, and convey their ideas. So Charlie wanted to show the other side, and he wanted these kids to come up and test those ideas that they'd heard in the classroom, excuse me, against the other side. So that was the whole idea. But he was so good at it because he could hold it together the entire time, right? And they would say all kind of terrible things at him and spit on him and talk about his family and just awful things. And he'd be called a fascist and a racist, and no basis for either one of those. Just the most ridiculous things to say about somebody in his position. But I mean, he would talk about these political ideas and these concepts, but Charlie was an unabashed Christian. He was a believer in the gospel of Jesus Christ and his Lord and Savior. And that was at the forefront of everything he did. He would talk about, tough things, abortion and, all these social issues, but he would talk about them from a biblical perspective, which may be, why he was on a different level as far as the amount of hate that he got, than some of these other commentators who would stick, strictly to politics. And if you're a believer, you shouldn't be able to separate the two. There's no such thing as a separation of church and state for us. That's ridiculous. And Charlie did not separate those two things. He stuck them together in everything that he did, and that's what he should have done. So you would get, the Constitution, and you would get the scriptural basis for the idea. But he was a believer. He shared the gospel. It was woven into these political discussions that he would have in his passion for these young people. But we think about why he was killed, and I'm sure that has something to do with it. We look in recent political history. They tried to kill Donald Trump twice, that we know of. They actually shot him once, and they were really planning on shooting him again. And I'm saying they, when we know who. Well, maybe we don't know who they are. Let's talk about who they are. We can't call them all Democrats. I mean, we might be able to call them all Democrats, but we can't call all Democrats these people. There's some Democrats. I live in Georgia, and we've got Democrats here that have a hunting license and a safe full of guns and don't think women ought to murder their children in the womb. So there's the Democrat thing is a pretty broad spectrum. But the people who have tried to kill Trump, and undoubtedly the folks who succeeded in killing Charlie Kirk, are on that side of the political spectrum. We've never seen, I can't say we've never seen, it's been a long time since we've seen a left-wing commentator be assassinated, or at least have an attempt made on his life like this. So we can call them Democrats, I guess. We can call them left-wing. But what they really are is evil. Right? And we can say, well, they were insane or whatever. Sure they were. They were insane because they were evil, right? And we're going to, there's a group of people already who are saying, well, whoever did this was disturbed. There were things going on in their mind that we don't know. They were struggling with something. Well, like a lot of people struggling don't murder somebody, in front of a crowd of, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people. It's a huge audience at this school today. But there are a lot of people who are struggling, who have mental issues, disorders. They're on or off medication that don't murder people. It happens. These people are just walking around every day, not murdering people. But this guy today, he didn't not murder anybody. He murdered Charlie Kirk. Um, and somebody of similar ideology tried to murder the president now twice. Just insanity, just craziness. And how terrifying this is at this point. We're not putting this back in the can, right? We're not going back. There's no going back from this. That's not going to happen. Um, we can't. There's not enough. I don't know even how to say it, where to even start. There are so many people with so much hate in their heart that we're not going to reach them all. We can start isolating these people, and that's the best way to do it. To really change somebody's mind, and I don't know how much of that Charlie did, but he would do it in these big forums. Where I've been successful changing anybody's mind is not on social media. That never happens. But in a one-on-one conversation, and sitting down with these people and being rational and reasonable, and that doesn't always work. But there aren't enough hours in the day. There aren't enough of us to have these conversations with people that are really going to change their minds. There are people that are so full of hate and so full of evil that they just can't. This is all they want. This is all they know. They're eaten up with evil, and that's sad. Like that's really sad, and it's really scary because we'll talk about this. I'm looking at the initial post today when Charlie was first shot. I'm there just a few minutes after, on CNN social media, and I'm scrolling. I'm trying to look for it right now. 3,200 comments. I'm looking at this one post right now. 3,200 comments, and there's just evil coming out of of all sorts of people. Just hate, just evil, and they're not trying to hide it. They're not like, this is their names. You can click on their profiles and see who they are, and people are just they're so angry, they're so evil. I don't know, and I keep talking about that point, but that's all you can think of, right? When somebody left their house, packed up their rifle, and said, "I hate that guy so bad that I'm just going to go out there and kill him today." And then there are thousands and thousands of people who are just okay with it. Not only okay with it, celebrating it, supporting it, making fun. We're talking about, thoughts and prayers. They always like to make fun of thoughts and prayers when bad things are happening. But I'm reading comments and people are like, "I'm glad he got shot and he found out," as the other half of, FAFO. And it just, I don't know, just the description of the video and things. If you hadn't seen the video, don't. I recommend not watching it. I saw it on accident and I wish I hadn't. It was one of the most horrible things I've ever seen in my entire life. But there are people celebrating this, and we're not going to win those people. Not as a whole. Maybe we'll win a few of them, but we're not going to win it. And I've been rambling the last few minutes to make the point that we're not going to put this back in the can. We can't go back from this. People are just absolutely lost. And then you look at the media, portrays and the CNNs of the world and the NBCs of the world, and they're going, right-wing extremist. Charlie Kirk was. Well, why do you think somebody thought it'd be a good idea to kill Charlie Kirk? Well, when you paint him as a right-wing extremist or literally Hitler, how many times have we seen that? He's literally Hitler. He's not. He's literally Charlie Kirk, or he's literally Donald Trump or Tucker Carlson or whoever. The fascist. He's not a fascist. He's inviting you to the microphone to speak at his event, to yell at him and say terrible things. Fascists don't do that. He wasn't trying to suppress anybody's speech. But that's kind of the point, right? He wasn't trying to suppress anybody's speech. He would disagree with you and he would have this debate with you, but he wouldn't stop you from talking. I mean, people just saying horrible things at him and he just let them ride. So why would they kill him? They didn't kill him because they hated him. They killed him because he was effective. Because he would win people over. He would change minds. He would show a lot of times the absurdity of the argument of the left, just the insanity with some of the things they would say, some of the stuff they were not able to justify. But that's why they killed him. They hate a lot of people. They hate a bunch of people. They could kill all kinds of people. But they made an attempt at Charlie because he was effective. So what does this mean? There are other guys that maybe not as big a stage as Charlie. I would have to, dig it up and get the stats on it. But you look at people like Steven Crowder or Tim Pool or Tucker Carlson might be bigger than, Charlie in terms of his audience, things like that. Maybe a James O'Keefe or a Michael Knowles or, any of these other guys. But what do they do now? Because they have similar things too. They go to these college campuses and they do these live events and auditoriums and theaters and things like that. So do you keep doing these things? I mean, I heard Tim Pool say today, just within a few minutes of recording here, he wondered if anybody who knew they were going to get killed, right? What is your message? Is it still important enough to go out there? If somebody's out there waiting with a rifle, and they're definitely going to shoot you. Like, would any of us still go out, and do it then? Well, now we got to ask, is there a guy out there with a rifle that's waiting on us to go speak at this open air event, and contrary to whatever they believe? Do you keep doing that? And I want to say, I hope so. I've spoken at one open air event in my entire life, and everybody there agreed with me. We were way out in the sticks, and there was this thing we did way back. But I mean, that was 10 years ago now. This wasn't happening then. But it happened today. So these other guys have got to look and see, what have we got to do to keep doing these things? Are we going to keep doing these things? Is it possible for us to keep having these events and being out in front of people and potentially making ourselves a target? It's a crazy world that we live in. I was talking to some friends earlier, and they're kind of like, well, when does when somebody that the left looks up to, or somebody that the left embraces, something like this happens to them, and we've seen cities burn before, and they're like, God help if the other side starts burning cities now. Like, this is not a call to violence. That's not what I want to do here. But something's got to change. We can't just line up, make ourselves a shooting gallery if we want to address large crowds of people, even if we think they all agree with us. It seemed like, from the other footage of the event, it seemed like the overwhelming majority of the people were on Charlie's side. They were excited about seeing him. They were fired up about being there. But I mean, it just took the one guy, and again, I'm reading thousands and thousands of comments on multiple posts across multiple social media platforms, and there's a lot of hate coming out. There's probably some more of these people out there. Where are they? Who are they? What are they going to do? And when are they going to do it? We don't know. So I would advise anybody speaking in a forum like that to take whatever precautions you can. I would hope that this doesn't end things like that, because then they've won. That's what they wanted. They just wanted him to stop talking. But I hope what happens out of this is that we lost one Charlie Kirk and that we get 10 more. People who are bold enough to share the truth and, not be ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ at the same time. But I mean, we've seen churches attacked too. I'm thinking about pastors, and you got to stand in front of the room every Sunday. And there's a lot of people between you and the door most of the time. And we've seen churches attacked before. Some guy drove his car through one not long ago, and we've seen shooters and things like that. That's the world we live in, and we've got to be ready for it. whether it's at church or at some other type of event that we go to. And I'll never forget the day that, it's been a few years now. We're getting ready to go to the Christmas parade, I think it was. And I'm teaching my kids the difference in cover and concealment in case something goes crazy at a parade. Because I want to say it was maybe an event in Europe where somebody had driven a car through a crowd at a parade. I hate that, that I had to teach I guess my kids were 12 and 7 or so at the time, whatever it was. And I'm like, hey, this is something that you can get behind and they can't see you. And this is something you can get behind and they can't hit you with a bullet or their car. But those are the things we have to have in mind. And that's sad. It's terrible that we've got to always have that in the back of our head. You can't ride a subway car with your earbuds in and your head down in a book or whatever. We've got to understand situational awareness and execute it. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. We can't turn this off. I've said before, we can't put it back in the can. But be ready. Be ready. It's a sad day. It really is. And I understand if you're angry. I'm angry. It was I waited a little while to hit record for my temper to calm down, because it would have been really easy for me to just come on here and rage. And there's plenty of that out there. I've seen it. If you want to find it, it's on social media. It's here on YouTube, wherever you're watching. There's plenty of rage right now, and I don't blame anybody who's mad. Hey, this is a thing to get mad about. You can't get killed because they stood up for what they believed in and not be mad about that, especially when they're on the side of right and the side of truth. I'm going to talk around in circles if I keep going. I didn't plan on being on this long. But if you're still here, if you're listening, God bless you, man. Be careful out there. It's a crazy world that we live in. Seek the truth. Help advance the truth. Not just, in terms of political ideology, but also the message of the gospel. Be bold. The messenger's got to be bold. And that's what I'm hoping for you guys. And that's what the standard I'm going to try to hold myself to. I'm not nearly as big as any of the names that I've mentioned on this list, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that hates me because of something I've said on this platform. It is what it is. I got to be ready the same as you guys. But that's where I'm going to jump off, I think. I'm grateful for each and every one of you who listen, who watch. Tell your friends. Don't forget to please subscribe. It helps us so much when you do that. When you like, when you react, when you comment on posts and things like that. We greatly appreciate that more than I could ever convey in a limited time that I have here. But I'm grateful for that. God bless you guys. I love you. See you next time.